Hey everyone. Today I wanted to bring a story to you about Nicole Simpson. Let's take a look. Former football star and actor O.J. Simpson was accused of murdering his wife Nicole Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman on June 12, 1994. During his trial, prosecutors Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden built much of their case on an incriminating trail of Simpson's blood. His blood was at the Bundy's Avenue crime scene on the back gate of Nicole's condominium. It was in Simpson's Ford Bronco, and the trail of blood continued to Simpson's Rockingham estate. The glove allegedly belonging to Simpson was found behind his house. It had traces of his blood along with both of the victims. There were also a pair of socks in Simpson's bedroom which had Nicole's and his blood on there. Prosecutors claimed that the blood dripped from the wound of Simpson's hand as he was stabbing the victims. However, the defense claimed that much of the blood evidence was planted. They claimed that it was stolen from Simpson's blood vial provided for DNA testing.
Whenever it was bad news, I had to tell O.J. the bad news.
Thankless job.
Thankless job, very much so.
Did you make any money from all those weeks and months?
No, I got paid a little bit in the beginning.
Who made the most money?
Robert Shapiro.
How much did he make?
Our deal with him was $1 million to $100,000 a month.
Has he gotten paid?
Not all of it.
Mr. Kardashian, you sat in that courtroom as a lawyer. Now you're talking about things that you discussed with O.J. Simpson. Doesn't this violate your attorney-client privilege?
Barbara, I'm on the witness list for the civil trial, and I think that's something that the court will have to determine at that time.
Are you sharing any of the profits, if there are any, from this book?
I don't like discussing my financial situation.
You saw O.J. Simpson almost every single day. He wanted someone with him all the time. At first it was you, and after a while, enough already. And so, what did you do?
I had an assistant of mine, Nicole Pulvers, who was an attorney, and we had her sit with him all day, every day.
She was paid to go and keep him company?
Yes.
That's rather spoiled of Mr. Simpson, is it not?
Very.
In the book, even before the trial started, you say that Robert Shapiro said to you, "This is how I think the murders may have been committed." What did he say?
Mr. Shapiro told me one day that he thinks O.J. went over there and he was just going to poke her tires, and she caught him, and that's when the murders took place. And I was astounded. Here is our lead trial attorney giving me this theory of guilt. And I said, I don't want to hear theories of guilt.
Do you think Robert Shapiro thought that O.J. Simpson was guilty?
Yes.
Again and again, you say that Robert Shapiro wanted Simpson to plea bargain.
I overheard Mr. Shapiro at one point in the courtroom during a break say to Mr. Simpson, we should plea bargain. You would get 12 years or whatever it was, and Robert Kardashian would get so much time as an accessory. Well, Barbara, my jaw dropped.
Why would you have been an accessory, for hiding the knife?
I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I was astounded, and I was shaking. I was so mad, so upset. Where would this even come from? He knew that I knew nothing about any of this.
What did Simpson say when his attorney says, maybe we should plea bargain?
He started yelling at Bob and saying, what are you talking about? I don't ever want to hear this again. I didn't do this.
Robert Shapiro denies this. He says that he may just have mentioned plea bargaining with the lawyers as a kind of what if, where you examine every scenario. Which one is telling the truth, you or Shapiro?
I am.
This is why you wanted Shapiro off the case and wanted Johnny Cochran?
We didn't need our lead attorney having concerns about guilt. Also, Johnny Cochran related better to Mr. Simpson.
And Cochran also knew how to win over the predominantly African-American jury. Lawrence Schiller reveals for the first time that before the jury was brought to see Simpson's Rockingham estate, Cochran, Kardashian, and the rest of the defense team gave Simpson's house a complete makeover.
They went in and they remade that house. As one source told me who was there, the white women came off the walls and the black women came marching in.
You and other members of the defense team rearranged pictures, took away pictures of white women. Paula Barbieri, whose nude picture was next to O.J.'s bed, put in pictures of O.J. with his mother, put a sympathetic poster of a little black girl supposedly starting school that had been in Cochran's office, rearranged all these pictures. Don't you feel that you were manipulating the jury?
I did feel this was manipulative.
And actually, the pictures had been quite glamorous and mostly white.
Previously, yes.
Previously.
Yes.
Wow. One of the things that you write that most disturbed some of the members of the defense team was the DNA evidence, the blood. This really raised out.
It affected everybody.
Which ones were certain that O.J. Simpson was innocent? Which ones had doubts and even thought he was guilty?
I think that many of them, maybe the majority of them, had doubts, but they were professionals.
Did Johnny Cochran have doubts about O.J. Simpson's innocence?
He had doubts about O.J. Simpson's stories about the cuts on his fingers. He had doubts about the fact that Simpson could remember almost everything in his life, but couldn't explain when the cuts took place or how.
But the biggest problem was the blood. Simpson's blood at the crime scene. Nicole's blood found on Simpson's sock in his bedroom. Most damaging, Ron Goldman's blood in the Bronco, and the blood of all three found in the glove at Rockingham. How did the DNA, the blood evidence, affect you? Ron Goldman's blood in Simpson's Bronco, Simpson's blood in so many places.
Barbara, that was the most devastating part of the whole trial for me. I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm so conflicted because of that blood evidence. It's very difficult for me.
You had many discussions with A.C. Cowlings about the blood. You and Cowlings, two of Simpson's best friends. And he also expressed doubt. Yes?
Yes. If you can imagine two men who have known O.J. I, 25 years, and A.C. grew up with him, knows him much better than I. When we would talk about this blood evidence, we would go all over the board. We would go from innocence, he couldn't have done it, and list all the reasons why. Then we would say, well, but how did the blood get here? Maybe he did, and it was so heart-wrenching, Barbara.
To believe that O.J. Simpson is truly innocent, you have to believe that the LAPD conspired to frame him. Do you believe that?
Obviously, I don't believe the entire LAPD conspired. I believe a few individuals did some things that were not normal.
But not a whole conspiracy.
No, it's impossible.
The defense claimed that detectives Phil Venator, Tom Lang, Ron Phillips, and Mark Furman either lied or planted the evidence found at the crime scenes. On October 3, 1995, he was found not guilty of the murders and possibly one of the highest profile murder cases revealed to the public. The investigation into the case suggests that the LAPD may have tampered with evidence and possibly framed Simpson. But the former prosecutor wrote a book, The 5 Reasons Why O.J. Got Away with Murder, says that the LAPD was not involved in any kind of framing. He suggested that the detectives didn't even know each other to come together to frame Mr. Simpson. Lead detective Mark Furman arrived to the scene, but 45 minutes later, the investigation was reassigned to Lang and Venator, members of a special LAPD unit that handled high-profile cases. According to the defense, Furman wandered away from the murder scene a few minutes later and found a glove. They stated that he picked up the glove and put samples of Mr. Simpson's blood on the glove, blood from the victim's body on the glove, took it to Mr. Simpson's home, and planted it there with the evidence stating that Mr. Simpson had to be the one that killed Nicole and Ron Goldman. They stated that 14 officers arrived to the crime scene before Mark Furman arrived. They all stated that they seen one glove on the ground, so it was impossible for him to pick up the glove, put Mr. Simpson's blood and the victim's blood on it, transfer it to this location, to the socks, to the house, and because there was not two gloves there, is what they're saying. And then they said it is unheard of for police to frame African Americans. They stated that this is where they believe at this point the blood was placed on the glove at the scene. Once again, they stated that this idea is ridiculous because there were hundreds of reporters at Rockingham watching the detectives' every move. They claimed that there was a spoonful of blood missing from the blood sample given to the DNA sample testing. So therefore, the jury found Mr. Simpson not guilty because of a reasonable doubt, because that was the exact amount of blood that was needed to be placed on the glove, on the socks, at the home. Thanks for watching.